Here we go. Use your filter if you have to, because the eyes are a little bit tired this morning, a little bit red. And we're doing two-a-days here, my partner, Mark Eckel, because this is our second podcast this week. But we got fresh information. We wanted to report on the big Eagles win last night against the Commanders. My name's Ken Dunek, ex-Philadelphia Eagles tight end. My partner is Mark Eckel, covered the Eagles for many years for NJ.com and the Trenton Times. And we welcome you to the Bird Brains with Ken and Mark. Mark, national game. I'm assuming you got to watch in the comfort of your home in North Myrtle Beach. What'd you think?
Yeah. Listen, the Eagles, it was a win. They struggled early, as they often do. But we said this earlier in the week after the Cowboy win, and I think it really played a part. We had said that the fact that they beat the Cowboys so easily, that they were able to rest guys in the fourth quarter of that game, whereas Washington had a tough game on Sunday against Pittsburgh that came right down to like the last seconds, actually. I really think that was a factor. I think you saw a fresher Eagle team in the second half, and especially the fourth quarter, than you did a Washington team. And playing on 3 days, you know better than I. That's not easy. Those Thursday games they're tough games, and sometimes they are a little sloppy because teams aren't ready to come back in 3 days and play. But I really believe that the fact that the Eagles, and give the Eagles credit for that, they put the Cowboys away early so they could rest guys. You saw a fresher Eagles team in that second half, and that's how they were able to, I think, pull away from Washington. I think that was a big factor.
I agree. It was an ugly, frustrating win, kind of like the Eagles season, really. The Eagles are 8-2, and you're sitting here a little bit like last year. It's 10 when they were 10-1, and saying, what the heck's wrong? Well, there's not too much wrong when you're 8-2.
Sure.
There are some areas to clean up, and we're going to go over that. But let me remind everybody that we're recording this podcast at the Sweet Recording Studios in Mount Laurel, New Jersey. If you have an idea for a podcast, go to sweetrecording.com and ask for Joe Gangemi, and he will take care of you. So, this podcast is also sponsored by Gateway Mortgage. Call my friend Chris Wilhelm for all of his mortgage plans, 856-810-1222. That's Chris Wilhelm at Gateway Mortgage, 856-810-1222. And the Eagles cruise is going to happen in April. We're leaving from Tampa on April 12th. Myself, Vince Papale, Sean Landetta, Gary Cobb, Byron Evans, and others will be joining us. If you'd like to check out that Eagles cruise, Joe is going to post a little note for us on the screen here, and you can use the promo code Dunek, D-U-N-E-K, and get a $300 discount off of your cabin. And then finally, the JerseyMan magazine, PhillyMan magazine. Our events are winding down for the year, but we have a great holiday party on December 5th. If you have an interest in attending that, contact me, Ken Dunek, Ken at JerseyManMagazine.com. Okay, I was looking at, just thinking about, the game in a nutshell and the season, and, sometimes the frustration with Nick Sirianni. Nick Sirianni with the Eagles is 42-19.
Yes, he is.
One Super Bowl appearance. It's a head scratcher, isn't it? Because there's a level of frustration with this coach that is not commensurate with the record. And it's because of some of the decisions he makes. It's because of some of the fan interaction. But you can't fault the success. 42-19 in the NFL is a dominating performance.
And it certainly, and again, last night he did nothing wrong. I don't think. Right now he coached
No, he
well.
was actually kicking field goals when I thought he should kick them. Of course, Jake Elliott didn't cooperate.
No.
He missed the first 3 kicks.
Actually, Dan Quinn, I think Nick got in Dan Quinn's head. Dan
pulled a Nick. He pulled a
he
Nick
thought
last
he was
night.
Nick last night.
There's no question. That 4th and 2, you got to kick it. In a game where points are at a premium, you have to kick it. You have to kick it.
Al Michaels thought it was 3rd down.
Did he? I didn't notice
because
that.
Michaels kept saying if they don't gain any yards here, there'll be a 41-yard, whatever. And I'm thinking, Al, and then I'm thinking maybe I got it wrong. Maybe it is only 3rd down. Yeah, so they couldn't. I don't think they realized that what he was, because that made no sense.
Maybe he thought it was a house rule. Maybe
we're
at the link.
You can't kick field goal because and just the way that sequence went, it was 2nd and less than 1, and he ran the ball, which is fine. 2nd less than 1, and he got knocked back a few feet, I guess.
Right.
He didn't get back. So now it's third and a full one. And he lost another yard. So things aren't going your way there. Now it's 4th and 2. Just take the points and take the lead. I'm not saying the Eagles wouldn't have still won, but it would have been a different game. The Eagles getting the ball back down a point with 8 minutes to go. Sure, could they have still driven down? Yes, they could have been. Barkley, the way he was running in the fourth quarter. But you're thinking differently if you're behind. The Eagles get that stop. Now the Eagles are celebrating like crazy. They just stopped them on fourth. Momentum's a big thing, and then they go down and score and make it a 2-score game. But yeah, I don't know what Quinn and his answer about being bold and this and that. It just didn't make any sense to me.
Did you see who made the stop on that play? Brandon Graham.
Yeah,
And
Brandon Graham had a good game.
Play. He did. Well, the entire Eagles defense. Let's talk about defensively a little bit. Jalen Carter is becoming a major league disruptor in the NFL. He had 7 tackles yesterday, but he spent a lot of time in the backfield just pushing offensive linemen back at will. Zach Bond, 14 tackles again, and he's all over the field. This guy is a very athletic, sideline to sideline. He can cover. He can tackle. I think the entire city has fallen in love with Zach Bond. And
let me say something about that.
Yeah.
That's Vic Fangio. I know that makes your boy. We've been early on. We were a little not critical, but we're saying it was taking his defense time. But that, if you read the quote from Vic, I don't know if it was last week or the week before that, but he was asked about Bond and about signing him and everything else, and he didn't. Vic's honest. Vic will answer your question.
He is honest. He
goes
to the Jim Morris School of Coaching.
He don't give you long answers, but he gives you precise answers. And he didn't throw Howie under the bus, but somebody said when you were looking at Vaughn, what made you what did you like, or whatever the question was, and he said, well, Howie came to me and said, look at this kid. I think we could sign him, and he could be a good backup on the edge and play some special teams. Vic said, I looked at him and I said, nah, he's not an out. I'm going to play him inside. And there you go. Because he was an outside linebacker.
Oh, he was an outside linebacker and edge rusher. He never played inside before.
Right. He was basically what Howie thought he was, a backup. He was a backup, rotation guy, and play little special teams. They moved him inside and he's become a star. So,
Another defensive standout last night, Reed Blankenship had 10 tackles and, of course, the interception that kind of sealed the game. Offensively, I thought Jalen Hurts looked regressed a little bit. Now, he got a blow to the head early. I'm not sure how much that affected his performance, but he looked unsure, very tentative, missed a couple of wide open targets. I remember in the first half, A.J. Brown was wide open on the sideline. He missed him. On the touchdown that he wound up trying to shovel it away, there were 2 receivers standing wide open in the end zone all alone, and he couldn't get the ball out in time. So it wasn't vintage Jalen performance, although if you look at the numbers, not too bad. 18 for 28, 221 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. I also believe that it was the greatest example of when you have a running back that is hitting on all cylinders like Saquon Barkley is right now. That is a game-changing aspect of the game, because if you can run the ball effectively, you can control the time on the clock. You control the ball, keeping it out of the opponent's offensive hands. And it's just a very relaxing feeling to know that you can pick up 3 to 6 yards every time you hand it off to the guy. Saquon Barkley again last night, 26 attempts, 146 yards, 2 touchdowns. Of course, the 2 late touchdowns that sealed the game. He caught a few. He's just getting better. And if you're a Giants fan, you got to be you got to be in the bizarro world right now, because how do you let this guy go? It makes no sense.
And he wanted to stay.
Yeah, a couple $1 million would have done it, right?
I mean, it's not like there's some guys just, I mean, they don't want to play for, so you can't blame the team sometimes when the guy says, no, I don't want to be here. I don't, whatever the reason. Some guy, they want to go back to whatever. No, Barkley made it clear to the Giants for the last 2 years when because his contract was up and then they franchised him, which he wasn't happy about. But he I mean, there were quotes from him saying, I want to be a Giant for life. I want to play my whole career here. I want to. He's going to get those. Well, they're all getting fired anyway. But yeah, if you're a Giant fan, you're sitting there at 2-8, the worst team in football, at 2-8, and then you have to watch the guy that was your star not just have an MVP type season, but do it for your rival. Like if he was doing this for the Colts, you'd say, oh well, okay, but no, he's doing it for the team that's one of your arch rivals. It's got to kill you if you're. And guess what? I don't feel bad. I don't feel bad at all for the Giants or the Giants fans.
Well, what's kind of interesting is that they didn't want to spend the money on Saquon Barkley, and they gave it to Daniel Jones, who's an abject failure at this point.
And that's why they're 2-8 and the worst team in football. But again,
receiver wise, A.J. Brown and Dallas Goedert each had 5 receptions. I thought the play of the game was Calcaterra when he chases down that fumble from Dallas Goedert. That was a big play because at that point the Eagles really needed to score, kept possession of the football, and a tremendous hustle play.
They're the kind of things that if you didn't watch the game, you don't know what happened there. Because it's not in the box. I mean, also they'll say recovered fumble, Calcaterra, but that's the kind of thing that coaches love that, right? That a guy. It showed, like you said, a hustle play. It wasn't
absolutely. You can stand around and watch the plays, or you can get involved. I personally always wanted to be kind of near where the action was, just in case something like that happened. And those are intangibles in football that don't show up in the box score, but they're incredibly important. Hey, let's talk about the only
Eagle there. I mean, there was like 3 players. I thought when Goddard fumbled, I'm like, oh geez, because all I saw was what, and then boom, there's Calcaterra coming up with the ball. To me, the 2 biggest plays of the game, other than Barkley's touchdowns and stuff, but 2 plays was the Quinn not kicking the field goal, and then Calcaterra recovering that fumble.
Let's talk about the Jake Elliott situation. I was shocked when they put the chyron up on the screen last night that he had not kicked a 50-yard field goal all year. He's been a very reliable kicker for years now with the Eagles. And as a golfer, I can tell you a little bit like the golf swing. It can be finicky, and all of a sudden you lose it, and now you start thinking about it. It looked like last night he struck the ball okay, but there was a late hook to the ball, and he missed it left for the first 3 kicks and actually barely made the first kick of the night. Are you concerned about Jake Elliott? Is it time to start looking at alternatives?
No. Who you going to get? It's week 11 of the season. If there's a good kicker out there, he would have been somewhere. There's only so many good kickers. There's nobody out there to get. People were saying, bring in. They need to bring in kickers. Who you go bring in? Look, if you're not employed by now, you're not very good, right? So, and guess what? If they were to cut Jake Elliott, he'd have a job. 3 minutes after they cut him. Now he had a bad night. He had a bad night. Like I said to Joe before we started taping, if A.J. Brown had a night where he dropped 3 passes and didn't score, you wouldn't say, oh, we got to go get a wide receiver. A.J. Brown's. He had a bad night. Mm-hmm. Kickers, it's more obvious, or because you're only out there for X amount of plays. But, I mean, no, you can't give up on Jake Elliott. Like you said, he's been so good for so long. It's a bad day. And luckily, it didn't hurt him. Luckily, the Eagles, I mean, if Washington kicks that field goal and the Eagles lose 13-12, I guess it would have been, then you say, oh, my God. But he had a bad day, and the team still won, which says a lot about the team. But, no, you can't. There's nobody. First of all, there's nobody to get.
Well,
Washington's on their second kicker because their guy got hurt. I mean, no, you can't. That just causes more. Now, if it happens again and again, then I get worried. But that's his first really bad. I mean, he's only missed 5 kicks this year.
Well, I know he was 0 for 3 from the 50-yard line
last
night.
But one was that going into the game against
Jacksonville. But it seems to be becoming more commonplace that kickers hit those 57, 58-yarders. Like
kickers had last week was a bad week. San Francisco guy missed 3 last week.
Yeah. It was also a little cold last night at the link, which does affect the kicker because the ball doesn't compress. So
was it windy?
It was a little windy, not terribly windy, but all things considered.
I'm not worried. I mean, I'm not. It was a bad night. I'm going to say obviously Jake Elliott had a bad night, but I've seen too much good Jake Elliott to panic at this point. That's just me.
What did you think of Jaden Daniels? I personally think that the rib injury that he suffered a couple weeks ago is affecting him. He looked like he didn't want to run the football as much. He looked like his delivery might have been hampered a bit on some of the balls he tried to throw down the field. It wasn't terrible last night. He was 22 for 32 for 191 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. But what was your impression the first time you saw Daniels?
Well, I've seen him before. No,
I'm against the Eagles. Against the Eagles.
I was a big Daniels guy in the draft. I love him. I give the Eagles defense a lot of credit. Vic has been around a long time. He's faced rookie quarterbacks before. He came up with a good scheme. They kind of took Terry McLaurin out of the game, which
they really did.
And that's his mate. I think that hurt Daniels because that's the guy that he's looking for. I would think McLaurin probably gets 10 to 12 targets a game. He didn't get targeted much at all last night, so that was a big difference. And I think he also cut his hand. They said during the game.
I saw that.
He suffered a cut on his hand, which probably affected him. Daniels is going to have a great. He's going to be a great player. The Eagles. I'm going to give more credit to Vic and the Eagles defense for doing a great job against them last night.
By the way, McLaurin only had 2 targets yesterday, which is pretty impressive. Hey, what'd you think of the
Mitchell? Mitchell was on him most of the. I mean, they gave him help and stuff at times, but Mitchell had a great game too.
What did you think about the return of Zach Ertz?
One of my favorite guys.
Well, awesome. I know his mom. She's fantastic.
The wife.
Yeah, I mean, just a really good guy who, if you saw his press conference when he left Philadelphia, he was heartbroken. That's the nature of the business, really.
Oh yeah, but he's a guy that I covered most of his career. I would think, just one of my favorite players that I dealt with through the years. So yeah, and I could say this. Yeah, I could say this. His touchdown at the end of the game.
Yeah,
that really didn't mean that much, but it meant something to me. I had a 5-player parlay that included his touchdown.
How did I know where you were going with that?
I had a Jalen Hurts touchdown. I had a Saquon Barkley touchdown. I had something at Barkley yards. And,
The Barkley yards and touchdowns were.
I needed the Hurts touchdown, and I got it with 30 seconds left. So,
hey, a couple other issues about the game. Isn't it time to put a master ref in the booth and correct these? Yeah. Correct these egregious errors. Again, 2 face masks last night that are blatantly missed. If you have the technology of getting calls right and you have the challenge system and everything, why, if it's that obvious, why don't we just have somebody in the booth that can make that decision? It's getting frustrating for the fans, and it's getting to be more and more of a problem for the league because this is happening way too often.
No, and it makes what you say makes a lot of sense. Why not, right? I mean, again, and I don't want him looking at every play because I don't want the game to go 7 hours. But you're right. When there's something that, if they could show it to us on TV, if I'm sitting home and I could see it over again and say, "Oh my God, look at that!" Then they should be able to have a guy, like you said, just have a paid official sitting up in the press box, and he when something like that happens, he calls down to the ref and says, "Hey, you missed a face mask, or you missed." Again, I don't want it. I don't want it for little hold. I don't want it on a hold.
I get you. But if it's a blatant personal foul, exactly. There should be a system to.
I agree.
To correct that.
What else? Speaking of that, I talked about this with another person earlier in the week. It's 2024. The game has taken on so many changes in terms of everything, right? From when you played, which that was long ago, but anyway, the game's changed so much over the years. They add this, they add that, they technology this, that, everything else. Yet to measure a first down, they're doing it the same way they did it in 1937.
It's ridiculous.
2 guys,
it's absolutely ridiculous.
Holding chains.
Listen,
walk out the field.
you got digital capability. You can go right down with the thing and take a look at the ball, and they these old
It's the same way they did
guys.
it.
What do they pay them? Like $30 a game and a
I
Miller
don't
Lite
even know.
afterwards, and they're jogging out there. It's crazy.
They're doing it no different than he did it in 1930, right? The two guys walk out with a thing, and they stretch it out, and I mean that's what they need to fix more than anything else.
You know what's interesting though on this topic is there seems to be times when the officials on the field are conferring upstairs, and there was a call that was changed last night that
The
they
drop.
obviously yes they had to communicate from us. So there is
But they
there's
can't do it.
there is a mechanism for that to happen. It's just not happening on in the personal fouls that we talked about.
Is it? And I wonder why. I mean, there's got
Well,
to be.
because I think they don't want to overshadow the refs on the field. I
What they
think they
do
want to
when
give them. No, I get it, and it should be the right thing to do. But I don't understand the motivation on why you wouldn't want to do it.
right.
That's my
That's what
point.
I'm saying. Why? There's like if they could call down and say, I forget who the receiver was for Washington, but because they called down an instant and said, and no, that was no, he did, and it was obvious to the when you saw the replay that he did. Now I'll be honest. When the play happened, I thought he caught it.
Yeah.
First reaction, blind, just watching it live. I thought it was a catch,
Hmm.
and then they showed it again. It was obvious the ball hit the ground. So upstairs called down and said no, he dropped it, and
Right.
so if they called down for that, why didn't they call down on others when they say
Because one's a penalty and one's not.
so
I
penalties
guess.
you can't, plays
Yeah.
you can?
Yeah.
Okay, I
Yeah.
guess that's the way.
I mean, I'm assuming that. I don't know that for sure, but
Not just we're not just talking about last night. Eagle. I mean, the Cincinnati Bengals got robbed
terrible.
tremendously last
Two
week
fouls in the same
on the
play.
same play. They didn't call either
Crazy.
one.
Crazy.
I
Yeah,
mean,
these guys, these coaches and players put so much work into this, and you're laying your life on the line literally from game to game. I think it's inherent upon the league to make sure that this system gets tightened up a bit because
I couldn't agree more.
there's too many things happening. Hey, a quick final look at the stats, and then we'll look at the upcoming schedule. Eagles out first downed the Commanders 23-18. Beat them in rushing 228-93. In passing, we nipped them 226-171. So, Eagles win. We move on. Now we go to the L.A. Rams. You think this could be a problem? Followed up by at Baltimore, which we know is going to be a problem.
The Rams game is big in a lot of ways because it's on the road. Um, the Rams, the Rams are a team I can't figure them out. That's one of most teams I like to think I know. Just when I think they're good,
Yeah.
they go out and play terrible and lose to the Dolphins.
They played terrible offensively against the Dolphins. I was
Yeah.
shocked by that.
Other times when I thought, nah, the Rams just aren't. I didn't think they were going to be that good when the season started. I thought Aaron Donald retiring was a huge loss, and Matthew Stafford I thought was maybe near retirement, and McVay talks about retiring every other week. So
What's because
I just
that's
thought I
good.
wasn't big on the Rams this year. But then they won some games. I thought, oh, okay, maybe they're better than I thought.
Well,
And then they lose.
also considering that their offensive line was decimated like the first
What?
week. They lost, I think, 3 starters the first week. So
I mean, they have talent.
I do think the Rams got a little bit embarrassed against the Dolphins, and they know what a challenge they have coming in. So the Rams are going
They play Sunday. They play New England, so they should get right
to.
in that game. They're fighting for their lives, and that the West is pretty wide open. That's gonna be a tough game. I mean, the Eagles are the better team, I think, on paper. I think they have more talent, but McVay's a good coach. Stafford can still get it if you get the good Matthew Stafford, he's as good as anybody. When he's good, he's as good as anybody. They have good receivers, so that's a big game. And it's going to be an interesting game,
And then they go to Baltimore.
which is a very good team. We know
Mm-hmm.
that. Baltimore,
Well,
that's a team where Baltimore might be the better team.
well, if you look, so I ranked the teams
Okay.
AFC, NFC, and here's what I came up with. In the
Yeah.
NFC, I have Detroit number 1.
Mhm.
I have the Eagles number 2.
Mhm.
Now I've got a 5-4 team in number 3 because I still think San Francisco with McCaffrey is potent. And then I have Minnesota in the 4th slot. You could put Atlanta in there. I think a couple of teams are vying for that 4th slot. In the AFC, I have Kansas City 1, Baltimore number 2, Buffalo 3, and the Pittsburgh Steelers number 4. So, the Eagles are going to play one of the better teams in the NFL. They followed that game up with a home game against Carolina. Even though Carolina is playing a little bit better, it's a game we should be able to win. And then we're home against Pittsburgh, who is, again, Mike Tomlin, year after year. I mean, how good is this guy? Seriously. I mean, that team is tough as nails, always comes to play. They always play, seems to be a tight game, even if they happen to be struggling on offense. Defensively, they get after you. I'm a big fan.
You know what's funny? I am too. And when I lived up north, the Steelers weren't my favorite team, but I admired the organization. I had strong admiration for that. I mean, they've only had 3 head coaches in my lifetime, and I'm old.
That's crazy.
You know what I'm saying? So I admire
Noel, Cowher, and Tomlin. Yeah,
that's it.
Incredible.
So I really admire that. I admire the fact, like you said, they're always there. They're all, and I like Tomlin. I've dealt with him, several times over the years.
Do you know
when I moved down here? Let me just say, I moved down here where there's more Steeler fans here than anything. Why? I don't know. I think a lot of Pittsburgh people moved here or they vacation here, whatever. So I'm surrounded by Steeler fans. I don't like the Steelers as much as I used to because of the Steeler fan. However, they hate Tomlin. I tell them he can't win in the playoff. He can't do this. He can't. Well, we should fire him. And I look at them like they're nuts.
Do you know what message that sends to players when the coaches are there that long? They're going to be here. You are not. That makes Mike Tomlin the boss. No, seriously. I mean,
I agree.
That's a huge mindset because if you know the coach isn't going anywhere, you better do what the coach says. And a lot of teams, are struggling with that.
And especially in this day and age where coaches come and go for no reason. Like, for instance, and I don't want to beat this horse, but Doug Peterson shouldn't have been fired.
No, of course not.
Some coaches deserve to get fired. Listen, you go whatever, you get fired. Well, Doug Peterson.
Well, he got fired because he didn't toe the company line. That's what
he wanted to have a little bit of say.
Yes.
After winning a Super Bowl.
Yes.
He
Very
earned
understandable.
The right to have a little say. Now if he gets fired in Jacksonville, that might be deserved if they go 2-15. Yeah. Okay, that's different. And I'm just saying. But like I said, in this day and age, coaches get fired all the time after 2 years, 3 years, after 1 year. Coaches have gotten fired. So, for Pittsburgh to do what they do, that's impressive.
So a couple games this weekend. Baltimore is at Pittsburgh, and that should be a marquee matchup. And then Kansas City is at Buffalo. So it's going to be a great Sunday of football. And we thank everybody for getting up early with us and watching the Bird Brains with Ken and Mark. We are going to take next week off because we went 2 days this week, Mark. Our training camp is officially over. So we'll be back the following week and talk about what is hopefully an Eagles win against the LA Rams in Los Angeles. For my partner, Mark Eckel, this is Ken Dunek. Thanks for watching the Bird Brains with Ken and Mark, everybody, and we'll see you next week.